Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to the Macro Lounge podcast. I am your co-host, Chris, of course joined by my partner in posing chaos and everything that's sparkly in the world, Rachel Mead. And if you're new here, this is where we talk about all things bodybuilding, prep, mindset, and all the sparkly stuff we can think of at the time. And if you're listening on Spotify, hit follow so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that little bell sign to subscribe and you know when the new ones drop. And of course, follow us on Instagram at macro_lounge_podcast for highlights, clips, and the occasional thing that we screwed up. So, Rachel, this is actually the first episode we've done in about 4 weeks where it's just the two of us. I don't know what to do. We don't have a special guest.
Yeah, it's almost like empty now. We don't have another person to make them talk. But I guess
I could get a cardboard cutout and put it behind us just to make us feel good.
Less lonely.
Yeah, I know. It's just the two of us. Nobody wants to listen to the two of us forever long. Now she's got to sing it, so it's going to be karaoke night, everybody. This could go south. This could go south very, very fast. So what are we going to talk about today, Rachel?
So today we figured, seeing as it's the end of the season, we should probably have a little bit of a chat about reverse dieting. It is something that has been highly requested, and it is something that's very, very important after your season, because your season does not actually end after your show. It ends once your reverse has been completed, it's not really an end date there, but you do need to make sure that you come up in the calories a little bit nicely and don't just go crazy.
There's a few people out there now going, shit, I'm going to screw that up already. But as I said, this is probably one that we got asked a lot about, and messages coming through saying, oh, when are you going to do one on reversing? What are your thoughts on reversing? We do have a plan, and poor Rachel, I did email it to her earlier. No, I didn't give her a hell of a heads up, but I did send her 22 pages of notes. So I'm not exactly 100% sure how close to that we're going to stick, but she ran out of paper, so see, look at that. She goes old school. I put it on the laptop, which is a bit of a worry. But it's one that a lot of people asked about. Just to preface everything, we're going to talk about from our own opinions and also from some of the research that's been done. But also, if you do have a coach and your coach has a different plan, don't listen to me. Listen to them. That's what you pay them for. I'm not here to say what they're doing is right or wrong. I'm just going to say this is what my research and experience shows, and this is what we apply to people in general. So a lot of it is just general guideline stuff. So please don't take it as gospel, because frankly, I don't need every other coach in New Zealand or Australia coming down on me and telling me that I told their clients that they should do something else.
Chris's inboxes, but Chris said this.
I get a lot of that.
My coach told me this, but you say this.
Yeah, and at which point I'm just like, I'm just going to ignore it all. That's why, social media and I we don't get along very well.
So we are assuming that you have a good coach that you trust here. So at that point, listen to your coach.
That's all we're going to say on that, because
you hired them for a reason, and we're assuming it's a good reason. Exactly.
So reverse dieting it's something that's been around in the world of bodybuilding kind of forever. As Rachel alluded to, reverse dieting, it's a structured sort of slow increase in calories after prep. Traditionally, the idea is to increase the calories by a small amount, primarily from your carbs and fats each week, while slowly reducing your cardio so that your body can adjust. Essentially, it's meant to ease you back from being in a deficit without jumping straight into eating freely. There you go, we're finished. That's all reverse dieting. We can go home.
So what it is not, though, is doing your diet backwards. It kind of sounds like it might be that, but it's not. Okay, so don't play your coach and just follow your plans backwards. That's not reverse dieting.
No,
you're not going back to your 2-week out plan. That's not what we do here.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you clarified that. But it's bodybuilders have sort of grabbed onto that concept of reverse dieting. Essentially like, okay, during contest prep, at the end of it, you're going to be extremely lean. You're also going to be really hungry. Your hormones are generally going to be repressed. Quite often you're thinking about food constantly, because how many of you who have, you see in the end of the comp season, these constant stories and posts of what the first meal is going to be after the show. There's a box of these, moustache cookies or some exotic flavored donuts and everything backstage. There's that craving that's going on. And we sort of looked into, because a lot of competitors were rebounding really fast. They were gaining weight in a matter of days. They were panicking and feel that they'd ruined their prep and all the hard work they've done. Reverse dieting was kind of sold as the thing that would stop you blowing out and helping people stay lean longer. It was kind of marketed as a way to rebuild your body, and as you could slowly repair your metabolism and your hormone system, which is absolute crap. Okay, that's not what reverse dieting is about. Rachel's not disagreeing. She's looking at me going, yeah, I have a reverse plan. I'm kind of following it. She does tell me she does the 80-20 rule, so I'm okay with that because this is what I accept is gonna happen. Yeah.
I do think though, as a disclaimer, my advice to brand new competitors is quite different to experienced competitors. I've done a couple of reverses now, and this is what, my 4th season. So I do know my body a lot better than someone who it's their first show. So if you are in your 1st or 2nd season, I would say probably try to stick as close to that plan as you can, giving a little bit of allowance for psychological needs. But if you can stick to it, try to stick as close as you can. But if you're more experienced, I feel like the more experience you get, the more kind of leeway you can give yourself, because you know where that line is. You know where that line is that you can give it a little bit here, a little bit here. Whereas someone who is brand new doesn't really know where that line is. It's a lot easier to cross it, and it's a lot harder to know what you're actually supposed to do and just go free for all. So I just want to preface with that. If you're newer, my advice is a little bit different. If you are a little bit more experienced, you can be a little bit more flexible.
I mean, it's a lot of people, they're just terrified of, eating normally post-show. And
a lot of horror stories.
Yeah, you see a lot of horror stories. And look, it does happen. The reality of it is, there is no evidence that reverse dieting leads to a better long-term outcome compared to going straight back to maintenance. Sorry if that bursts any bubbles, and if your coaches have told you thou must do that, there is literally no evidence. All the data shows that competitors will regain some weight regardless of the method, and metabolic recovery only happens when you regain body fat. So bear that in mind. So let's see. It sounds scientific, and it probably is to a certain extent. I mean, I do get overly geeky out when I'm doing reverse plans, as Rachel can attest to. She gets this very specific, and we're doing this for this amount of time, and we're doing this, and she goes, kind of ignore it. But there's no large, high-quality trials of comparing reverse dieting versus jumping straight back to maintenance, or even eating freely post-diet, especially not amongst physique athletes. And so what we do know, and the data we do have, is based on natural bodybuilding case studies, metabolic adaptation research, refeeding research, observations from people such as myself. And there is some small uncontrolled bodybuilding studies, but not much. But essentially what they show is that they show the same patterns. So all of those sources basically, they point to 4 consistent findings. 1, everyone regains weight after a contest, no matter what method they use. Secondly, the metabolic rate only recovers when body fat is gained. Not from slowly ticking back up. It's literally you get back to a healthy level of fat mass. That's arguable how much fat mass you can gain. You should gain. Most research shows meaningful hormonal recovery is around that 3 to 6 kilos above stage weight, and tends to normalize somewhere between 5 and 10 kilos. Now that sounds like a lot, but don't be too scared. It's all based relatively on percentages.
Remember also, this does depend on your weight. A taller person will end up gaining more weight than a shorter person. If you are taller, you have a lot more room to spread that weight across. You are going to be heavier. You've got more bone density, you need more muscle mass. So just remember, height does affect that number, because I know there used to be you be 5 kgs above your stage weight. It used to be a number, like everyone should only get 5 kgs above stage weight. Maybe a really short person, tall person like me, 5 kgs is not a lot.
It more comes down to the relative percentage of body mass. But as I say, between 3 to 6 is normal, and 5 to 10 for a bikini athlete. Right? For obviously a men's physique or a bodybuilder, no, that can go out the window. The other thing is slow reverse dieting can delay that fat gain, but it also actually delays your recovery. So primarily by that, we're talking about your hormone recovery, things like thyroid function, sex hormones, cortisol, all that sort of carry. There's a lot of scientific geeky stuff, which I've got hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes here, but we won't bore you with all the details. But essentially, you can think about it this way. The longer it takes, the slower your recovery. So there's no proven, as we said, the other thing is they say there's no proven long-term benefit of reverse dieting. So no study at all, no matter what anybody tells you, has shown improvements in metabolic rate, long-term body composition, long-term fat gain, long-term hormone recovery, and psychological outcomes compared to simply going back to maintenance sooner. Everybody is different. So, reverse dieting, it's a tool. It's not a magic method. Okay, there's not a proprietary system of reverse dieting. Most of the benefits people report are actually come around from psychological structure as opposed to physiological superiority, meaning reverse dieting is more for the mind than it is for the body.
Like getting that taste of freedom. It's like when you do two shows and they're like a couple of weeks apart, the second one is always so much harder because if you've had a free meal, you've had a taste of that freedom or a day off. And then you have to go back and deplete again.
Yep.
So yeah, it's getting that structure back. It's having that structure so that you're not just going free for all, because it can get very easy to just throw all self-control out the window at that point because you no longer have a show in mind. Like, and maybe it's a year away. That's a long time. So at that point, yeah, it can be a bit of a free for all.
Yeah, and that's the point of the structure. You've been in such a structured environment throughout prep that it is often easier from a psychological perspective to maintain that structure. Physiologically speaking, yeah, we want that. I mean, how many times you see a video of somebody online and they're having that spoonful of lotus hibiscus spread and they're just looking like it's the most orgasmic experience of their life. That's the psychological side. You don't physiologically don't really need it, but the psychological side you've got to think about. And the fact is, there's also different types of reversing. You've got reversing out if you've got another show going into, like in the not too distant future, and there's if you've got more of a long-term reverse out because your season's over, you're going to go back into a growth mode, so you want to. Each one you have to consider differently, and I will talk a little bit about that as we get on. But the key thing you got to remember is everyone gain weight post-show. It's unavoidable. It's necessary for recovery. You have to do it. The key is how do you do it that works for you? And everyone is different.
I was going to say, the other thing is also, one of the big points of reverse dieting is gaining back the body weight you need, but not gaining too much excess that your next prep will be really, really hard. If you go too far past the point of your stage weight, so let's say you put on, I don't know, 20 to 30 kgs, if you're planning to compete the next year, it's going to be very difficult. Like, it's not impossible, you can do it, but it's not going to be fun. If you can keep that to a more manageable number, so generally my preps I usually lose around just over 10 kgs. If I was to really push my weight, maybe 15 at a max as a 170 centimeter person, so a little bit on the taller side. For me, if I was to then go to 20 kgs, my preps would get quite long and a lot less fun. So it's gaining back the amount of body fat you need to build muscle, but not too much excess.
It's a fine line. Like, there is no magic number, right?
No.
I mean, this is, when you're talking about gaining body fat, you're gaining body fat back. You're gaining body fat back for two reasons. One, so you can go into more of a growth mode. You will gain some body fat going into growth. But two, so you can actually you can recover your metabolic rate and your hormone support and everything through it. But there's no magic number, as we said earlier. It's not like, they say 3 to 6 or 5 to 10, roughly. 5 to 10 for women is about normal. But you're sort of more looking around that 20 to 25% body fat, which is like a healthy range of body fat for women. You don't want to be, if you go too much higher than that, obviously it just makes prep longer and more difficult. If you stay any leaner than that, like in the low teens, single digits, it can make growth harder because your things like if you don't let it come to the right level, like your resting metabolic rate won't come back to the right level. Your appetite hormones won't normalize. Your thyroid functions won't go back to normal. Your menstrual cycle won't necessarily return. And things like mood and energy just won't get back to where you want it to be. So, reverse dieting can keep you, if you don't do it properly, can keep you under that threshold for too long, which basically delays your recovery. You delay your recovery, you delay your ability to be able to grow and improve. And ultimately, that is why you're reversing, is so that you can have a better growth season.
You do not want to be stage lean forever. Like, it's not healthy to be stage lean. Like, you do it for a short period of time. Like, whenever I go to the doctors, I'm like, I'm sorry, my weight is so low. They always weigh me and they're like, what? I'm like, I promise I'm going to put on weight in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. And I'll come back on Monday and I should be fine.
So yeah, you're not supposed to stay stage lean. Like, remember, it's not a healthy state to be in if you're actually stage lean. I'm actually going to disclose this disclaimer. If you are someone who's had to lose a lot of weight to get to the stage, a little bit different because potentially you still would have had more weight to lose to get to stage lean. So you still need to reverse. Yes, you still need to bring the calories up. but your threshold for how much weight you would gain back should be a bit smaller.
Yeah. And that's when you look at the percentage of fat
Yep.
as opposed to a strict scales. Like, yeah, if you've lost 30 kilos and on stage you're a 55, you obviously don't want to go back to 85 because that would have been a brutal cut. But if you're in that 25% range and it puts you around 65, 70 kilos, in sweet, that's great. But as I said, the whole thing is about one of the key factors behind reversing is about getting that hormone recovery because your hormones are crushed during prep. We'll talk a little bit later on about the importance of getting blood work done, which is something that's grossly overlooked, particularly by female physique categories. But the hormones that are affected during prep are things like leptin, ghrelin, the hunger hormones, your thyroid, particularly T3 and T4, and oftentimes we don't really look at that properly. They can be suppressed during long dieting. That's what sort of controls your metabolic rate, and they will recover when eating becomes more and you gain a little bit more fat. Obviously, sex hormones, they're strongly linked to body fat levels. They get quite heavily repressed as well. And things like cortisol can be really high at the end of prep, basically because they'll improve with less cardio, less load, more sleep, more food, all those things that get sacrificed during prep. Sleeping goes out the window. Food is like, what's food? Shit tons of cardio. So, when those things balance, then cortisol will balance accordingly. So, slow reversing, the thing about it is that, yes, it will delay the fat gain, but it will also delay. Yeah, it will happen. But primarily what it'll do, it'll just make your recovery longer because your hormones will be suppressed for longer than's actually necessary. You don't need them to be suppressed for longer than prep. I mean, prep is bad enough as it is. So
actually, I do want to also touch on leptin and ghrelin. So those are the hormones that control your hunger signals. So they tell you when are you feeling hungry and when are you feeling full. When those hormones aren't, yeah, no, I don't have either. But when those aren't working properly, most people have the opposite of problem where they are feeling extra hungry and they are not feeling full. So they aren't getting sent the signals that, yes, we've eaten enough. So you could actually be full and your brain is not telling you that. Your brain is not telling you are full and that you have had enough food, even if you have. So that's something that's really important with reverse dieting. And that's why it's so hard, is because you might still feel like you're starving. You feel super hungry. You feel like you haven't eaten anything all day, even though if you've eaten maybe even like 2,000, 3,000 calories, you might still feel like you've eaten 1,000. So that's really important to know because your brain is tricking you into trying to eat more. It's like, we need extra food.
It's like, no, we don't. Damn it.
So that's something important to remember.
Yeah. So the other thing is, like, as I said, about, reverse dieting is primarily psychological as opposed to physiological. So, as I said, there is no demonstrated physiological advantage to reverse dieting. Okay? It's just structure and it just does make it easier. So, if you blow out your reverse dieting and absolutely screw it up, it's not the end of the world. Because frankly, if you find you get your body fat percentage back to where it should be and your metabolic rates and your hormone recovery and your training performance and you're happier, that's actually a better thing. So this is really, really individual, but so it kind of leads into one of the key factors in really doing it properly is understanding your own body and understanding your particularly blood work and why that matters post-show. I know people frequently only think about blood work when it comes to enhanced athletes, and I can hand on heart tell you that that's not true. Blood work it's one of the biggest missing pieces in bodybuilding culture. We obsess over macros and check-in photos, and you avoid the stuff that actually matters, which is what's going on under the hood. It's what we can't see. If you've been dieting for months and, low calories, high cardio, living off caffeine and adrenaline, you need to check those health markers because
actually,
those will dictate.
Yep, caffeine also, if you are just living off caffeine, that can actually also mess with your hormones. So that messes with your adrenal glands and not good. It's going to mess with your sleep as well. So it's good to taper down off that caffeine if you can. And my recommendation is always to try and have less caffeine in the off season. Save your tolerance for prep, because you will get used to it. You're having like double scoop pre-workout all through off season. You're going to get to prep and it's going to do nothing. Yeah.
I mean, although I am one of those unfortunate people that's caffeine immune and I can have caffeine half an hour before go to bed and still pass out, which is not good, not helpful. But that's one of the key things about blood work, which is often overlooked. I won't go into really super details, but there's certain things that you should get tested, and frequently we are now getting more access to it in New Zealand and Australia, and not necessarily having to go through your GP. And even going through your GP, sometimes you'll ask for, like, say, a thyroid panel, and they'll just test your TSH levels, and they'll say, "Oh, you're within the realms of normal." Well, we've as a physique athlete, we really don't give a flying rat's ass about
Normal.
TSH. We're looking at T4 and T3, and it's not what's normal; it's what's actually working. But those things can affect your energy, they can affect your mood, they slow your metabolism, it can cause fluid retention, things like feeling cold all the time, all those sort of things are driven by that T3 and T4. So that's a really important thing to get tested. Obviously, your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, LH, FSH, all those cool things, they should be tested. Particularly for women, iron and ferritin levels, because your low iron can happen during prep, basically due to severely restricted food, high training volumes, menstrual disruption, all that sort of stuff, or exhaustion, dizziness, low mood, breathlessness, all those things. Again, if you don't get the blood work done, it's guesswork. So it's really important to get those done early. Obviously, cortisol, glucose and insulin, fasted, those are important. Vitamin D. Probably one of the key things that frequently gets overlooked is they get their creatinine levels tested, and then your doctor says, "Oh, it's too high." You're like, "Yeah, well, because I'm training heavily, I'm taking creatine and all these things, and I've got low body fat, eating high protein, intense dieting, so it doesn't really mean absolutely jack shit to a bodybuilder."
It was really interesting. My new doctor, she actually asked me if I have protein powder, and she said, "Okay, cool. So I know when you get your blood work done, so that your creatinine levels will probably be quite high." So I thought that was really cool that she actually knew that, because I've never been to a doctor before that's ever said anything about that.
No, they normally just come back to you saying, "Your creatinine levels are high." You're like, "Yeah, no shit. I take about, 18 grams of creatine a day." The primary one from a kidney perspective to get checked is cystatin C. You have to specifically ask for that, and even a lot of doctors won't actually do it. It's a kidney marker that's not affected by muscle mass, by creatine use, by training load, by dehydration, high protein diets. It's one of the key things that you want to look at, and it's one of the more accurate things for physique athletes. So definitely asking for that. As I said, creatinine levels is basically useless for bodybuilders. It gets elevated all the time, so just go with it. So instead of panicking that it's high, just ask them for cystatin C levels. And it's something that you should do on a regular basis. But I say to people, do it pre-prep, during prep, post-prep, at least 3 or 4 times a year for both natural and enhanced athletes. Post-show is really good to get it done. It's not critical, but I think it's well worth the investment. So if you listening to this and thinking, all right, where do I actually get these tests done, especially ones that aren't really publicly available, like cystatin C or even full thyroid panels, they are available I strongly suggest Strom Nutrition Supplements. They've partnered with a lab here in New Zealand. You can go to their website. We'll put the link in this. And they actually have a link where you can go in and you can request these blood tests. Sometimes your GP will do it. But definitely look up the Strom stuff, particularly from the thyroid panel and the cystatin C test. So don't skimp out on that. It's a really important part of your recovery and your health.
And also, please don't do the thing. I have heard of people doing this where they're like, "Well, I know it's going to be bad, so I'm not going to get it tested."
Yep. And it's like, okay.
It's good to know how bad.
Yeah.
And what exactly is bad.
Yeah, what is bad. And also, if you get it done, periodically, like I say, like at least every 4 months. So, at least 3 times a year. You know what you are in different stages. So when it does elevate or it's depressed, it's like, well, okay, well, I expected that. If you do get it done and it rapidly goes to one end of the spectrum, then you're like, well, shit, hang on, I need to change something. And it's generally going to be, you'll know what you've changed, so you need to bring some stuff back in. So yeah, don't skimp out on that.
Timing, Chris, because obviously females, our hormones change a lot depending on the time of the month. Should we always get it done at the same time? Is there a specific part of the cycle that's best to get it done?
I would say consistency is a good idea. So like if you get it done like in the first week of your cycle, try and sort of time it around about then. And just because some of those hormones will be affected based on that, as opposed to just dietary or anything like that. But as I said, talk to your doctors about it as well. Sometimes it's a little hard to sell to the doctors. They kind of, you fit within the realm of normal. That's all that they care about. But as I said, there are other options available. All right, what else? Okay, so arguments for and against reverse dieting. Rachel's probably got lots of arguments against, but we'll start off with the arguments.
No, I argue for. I don't understand when people want to throw away all their hard work. Like there was a post on Reddit recently and someone said they gained 10 kgs within a week.
Well, that takes hard work.
Yeah. That's impressive. I'll say that, but that's an entire 3 months of dieting gone in 1 week. I mean, some of that would be obviously water retention, but for me, I think of it as obviously you want to get back to your kind of normal weight. So most people will have a more or less standard weight that they get to in the off season. Your body kind of likes being at a specific kind of range. Getting back to that weight is, that's pretty normal. But once you get past that, it's if you do that really, really quickly, it's you're just throwing away weeks of dieting and work. And I've just never understood it because I'm I dieted for 3 months for this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, particularly for, say, first timers or, people who do get very anxious when the structure is not there, reversing makes a lot of sense. So the slow increases can help them feel like they're not losing the plot. It keeps their eating patterns predictable, consistency. It stops the panic from going from 1,200 calories to 2,400 calories just completely overnight. So for some, that sense of control reduces the blowout behavior. So even if the science is not magic, the psychology behind it can be extremely useful. And it helps when you've got another show coming soon as well. So if someone has another show, say 4 to 6 weeks, a structured reversing plan out of that peak week, which we've done in the past. We didn't do it this season with Rachel because we've just sort of rolled straight through. But generally, you will have a structured reversing out of that peak week so that when we go back into peak week, we know what we're expecting. Probably best example would be Fiona Crawford. What'd she do, 7 shows and
a lot.
No, 5 shows over 7 months of a comp season. Pretty much from when prep through the last one. So she did essentially, I think her competitive season lasted must have been close to 16 weeks. And in that time, she did 5 different shows in 3 different countries. And I don't know how many different frickin' times.
And you say I'm stressful.
Yeah, no, I didn't have to get up at 1:30 in the morning for you. I got up for Fiona.
She went up me this year. She went up me.
Yep, she did. But that's when it makes sense to have a very structured reversing out of the peak week. So we go back into sort of more of a, we had to hold conditioning wise for Fiona for almost 8 weeks between one show and the last one. So that's where having that structure is really, really important to manage that stage weight, prevent eating swings, keep that conditioning without forcing, you're going into a brutal diet. It's that sort of reversing in between shows is not about metabolic repair. It's purely about managing the physique and the psychology in such a short window. So it does help keep the nerves and keeps people out of the all or nothing mindset as well. So that's the thing. A plan can be reassuring, right? So some athletes simply do better with rules and structure while they navigate through as their appetite changes and their body image changes. As you said, I'll put on 5 kilos in the first week. 75% of that's going to be water.
I think that's really important for first-time competitors, especially because they don't know really the difference between body fat and water retention. So when they're putting on that weight, a lot of the time it seems very fast and it can be quite scary to be putting on that kind of weight quickly. Because the first couple of weeks, usually you're putting on a few kgs pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have that structure so hey, actually I am doing all the right things and I'm not just piling on the weight and blowing out. I know that I'm doing this properly and I know that most likely it's water retention. I'm not blowing out and it just kind of can help calm you down. I'm not throwing away all those weeks of work. I'm doing the right thing. I'm growing and this is what needs to be done.
Yeah. And that's why there is a case for and against reverse dieting. So like I said, the case against reverse dieting is that the evidence behind it is weak. There is no solid proof, again, that it improves body composition long term. Doesn't show any evidence that it speeds up metabolic recovery. It doesn't protect against fat regain better than returning to maintenance straight away. So most research points to the same outcome. Again, everybody regains weight after a diet, regardless of the method.
Is there research to the contrast, though?
No,
or is there just no research in general?
Well, so no, there's research, but there's no evidence that says it's better. It's basically, again, it's primarily from a physiological perspective. From a psychological perspective, there's evidence to show that it makes sense. But it comes down to the individual. Like there's some people you want to bring back, and we'll talk a little bit of that in a minute. Some people will be very fast. as in it will be maybe a 3-4 week reverse. Other people, it'll be a 3 months reverse. It really depends on metabolically where they are and hormonally where they are. So again, that metabolic and hormonal recovery relies on regaining some body fat. And that's quite often the hardest thing for particularly female athletes to deal with. It's like, I have built this physique and this was for this one goal. And it can be a really hard thing for them to get their head around. So the rate that calories are added, it doesn't change the biological need for the body to recover body fat stores. Hormones like leptin and sex hormones and thyroid hormones only recover once that fat is restored, not because the calories were added back slowly. So once you get to that level, then you technically will be recovered. It doesn't really mean that, well, I added 100 calories a week for the next 10 weeks. It's like suddenly I've metabolically recovered. It's like, no, you got back to a healthy level and now you're metabolically and hormonally recovered.
Your body needs fat
difficult
to survive. Your body needs fat to survive. And women need more body fat than men.
I'm clearly going to survive forever.
Shit. So yeah, it sucks. Don't compare yourself to the males because women actually do need more body fat. Like our essential body fat that we need to survive is higher than men. It's a fact of life.
And that's the thing, that the slow increasing of calories can actually make it worse. So increasing calories, tiny amounts each week, they can keep your energy levels low for far longer than you need. They can make that deep suffering of those last 2 weeks of prep. It can last for much longer. The hunger levels are high. They stop your mood and your sleep from normalizing. They can delay training performance from bouncing back. They make you feel like prep's never ending. So for many people, a slow reverse diet becomes a second diet, not a recovery phase. And for me, reverse is supposed to be a recovery phase. You recover from the prep so that you can go straight into growing. So if you take too long, for some people, it can be detrimental.
No, 100%. It is very hard to find that balance as well of like, are you actually hungry or is your body just telling you you're hungry? Do you need to be at maintenance or do you need to be above maintenance? Or like, do you even know where your maintenance is at this point? So it is something that takes time to learn. So it is definitely the hardest for a first season. If it's your first season competing, this is the hardest part by far. Because you're also seeing the lines disappear, like you're seeing your body, change. You've been getting a lot of compliments in the gym, people saying, oh my God, you look great, like you've lost weight, you look awesome. That doesn't happen anymore in the reverse. And it's a stupid societal thing. Nobody says that.
My God, Rachel, you're looking strikingly healthy today. What have you been doing?
So, I mean, I get a lot of the looks in the gym of, oh my God, that girl needs to get a burger when I'm in prep. So I actually hate being stage lead now, but like originally you get the, oh my God, you're looking great, you've lost weight, oh my gosh, look at your abs, like looking amazing. Reversing, you don't get the compliments and it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. So you are not doing something wrong. It's just the society has these stupid standards that apparently losing weight is always a good thing.
Yeah, regardless of how you're doing it. I mean, the other thing about reversing is it can become a very good control tool for people who have some form of eating disorder or traits. It's not just recovery, it's just another way to avoid weight gain, stay lean, to feel safe. It can delay facing normal eating again. That is where reverse dieting can actually reinforce the very issues that it claims to prevent. So you have to be careful. It's like you got to listen to yourself. And if being in that controlled, restricted period for too long causes triggering, that's something that you really need to talk to your coach about. You really need to talk to your doctor about and make sure that you're on track for that. From a coaching's point of view, I'm actually not attached to the name reverse dieting. I care more that you recover well, that you do not blow up your relationship with food, and you get back to productive training. Because obviously, as I've said time and time again, the growth season is where the magic happens. So if a slow reverse makes you feel miserable and tired for 6 more weeks, that's not smart coaching. That's just a coach's ego disguised as strategy to make you feel more involved.
No, I know my first prep, it took me about 3 months to feel like a human again.
Yeah.
So, you need to be able to function. Because otherwise you've got, 6 months of the year feeling not great? That's a long time. It's hard.
Doesn't sound good. All right, so let's talk about practical framework, how I actually coach reverse dieting. So basically, one way I look at this, do not stay on stage calories. This is the fastest way to burn out, to lose muscle, to crash mentally, and drag that post-show misery out for far longer than it's needed. You want to get back to realistic maintenance intake sooner rather than later. We're talking weeks, not months. You should not crawl your calories up gram by gram all season, because by the time you get back to normal, it's time to start prepping again. The structure helps, but flexibility will keep you insane. So you want a plan, but you must adjust it based on mood, training hunger, digestion, and your own headspace. That's like with Rachel, it's like I give her a plan. I know it's going to be about 80%. More often than not, she's probably eating not enough, but that's cool. We know this. But it's about the headspace. Right, so that's kind of like the three main structures I sort of follow going through there.
And one thing I'm going to touch on with the headspace, and if you feel like you need a bit of extra flexibility, be smart about it. I've said this a few times, but if you feel like you need a day of just eating extra food, fill yourself up on wholesome, good food. Like my favorite things are like eggs on toast, wraps. Like I've had homemade burgers this week. Like it doesn't need to be the donuts and the fries, all the oily food. You can have wholesome food that you like. Just remember what you actually like. That is still, no, it doesn't have to be 100% clean. It doesn't have to be your chicken and rice, but it's still good food that will fuel your body. Because otherwise, like eating junk food, you often feel like absolute shit afterwards. So fill yourself up on the good, wholesome food first. Then if you still feel like you need some of that stuff after, then you can maybe have something. Because if you're full and you're satiated and you're happy and your food tastes good, generally you don't want all the extra stuff. You don't want to have all the extra cake. You don't want all the donuts. If you're already full of good food that has actually still tasted good.
And that comes back to, as I said, the reverse being more psychological than physiological. But it also comes back to your hormones returning to a healthy normal. When your hormones are where they're supposed to be, you're going to have less of those uncontrollable triggers of I must have this and I won't have to that, must have that. But there's two types of framework that around reverse dieting, as I mentioned before. The one is when you've got shows that are close together with that. So that's like if you're competing again soon. So the aim is to recover enough to perform in the gym, not to regain too much and too quickly. As I said, classic example was Fiona having to hold stage lean conditioning, but we also needed to try and grow in a little few areas because with some feedback we had from the judges and hat off to that girl. She did it. So generally the way that will sort of work is like if there's around 4 weeks between show. So essentially if you think about it, 1 week post show, increase the calories up by anywhere from 8 to 15% is normally where I work. It depends on, again, each individual athlete. That's why it's quite a big range. Increase that by about 8 to 15% per week over the peak week. Generally that's going to come through from increasing the carbs and fats again, because I tend to sort of, as Rachel will attest, I don't like cutting protein. And you slowly pull the cardio down by about 20 to 30% per week. Then from weeks 2 to 4, again, step it up by another 8 to 15% every 7 to 10 days, again, depending on how they respond. If the weight's not jumping too quickly, we can increase it a bit more. If it is coming back too quickly, we can pull it back down. That's probably where you're monitoring more the non-biometric data, things like hunger, mood, sleep, libido, hormonal cycle, strength, general energy, how your clothes are fitting, and photos and that sort of stuff. But that's when you're sort of getting back. And that's when you're trying to find that sustainable set point just to sort of keep you enough in the tank so you can push into the final prep for the next show. As I said, that's normally how I would work with somebody who's got about a month between shows. A classic example would be, say, doing a regional show, like either, say, ICN South Island or NZIFBB South Island, and then going into nationals. There's enough of a gap that you don't want to stay in that peak week low calories because it's just going to increase that torture. That's a sort of what we would do in that sort of environment. Or another example would be going from nationals to, say, going to like the Worlds, which was just this weekend in Dubai, or with Fiona when she did the NPC.
I think this is definitely something more common with pros because, as we've talked about before, a lot of the time you won't peak for multiple shows if you're an amateur. So if you've got your regional, sometimes you won't peak for it as much because it's just qualifying. If you're not aiming for a title or anything, you might not peak for it. So this is definitely also something that's really helpful for pros because if you're doing multiple shows, you want to be in top condition for both.
Yeah, especially at the IFBB level as a pro, when nowadays you've got the point system, so you can't just sort of like say, well, I'll see how I do in each one. You have to go in with the intention of winning that pro show so you can qualify. So the other way to do it is when you're going into a longer growth season. So this is kind of the end of the year, kind of where we are now. Generally, this is sort of where we're focusing actually on recovery recovering properly and going into a rebuild mode. So I'm sure there's lots of facts and figures that I'm throwing around here that everybody's going, fuck, what did he say? You can stop, pause, come back. Yeah. Replay. Rewind.
We need the subtitles on this one.
Yeah, we'll talk to the producer. So if you're sort of going into that growth season, generally speaking, I would increase the calories quicker. It's like the first week it'd be a bigger jump, like 20 to 30% in 1 week. Sort of works quite well. And you adjust it again, seeing on how they respond. That would be the first week, and then from then I'm normally stepping it up anywhere from 15 to 20% calories per week until they get back to maintenance. Again, probably takes about 4 to 6 weeks depending on the athlete, depending on how they respond. You can expect a weight gain, and most ladies can expect a gain between 5 and 10 kilos over their stage weight. That's normal. And it's often needed. This is, as I said, this is where the hormones and the strength and the mood and everything comes back. You'll know you're doing it right. Your strength goes up. Your mood settles down. Your sleep improves. Hunger calms down instead of staying like frantic. I must eat all the foods that I wasn't allowed. Your digestion comes back to normal. So less constipation, less bloating, less gas, all that fun stuff. Your menstrual cycle returns or it stabilizes. Like generally, as I said, it's not uncommon to lose your menstrual cycle during the deep ends of prep. It doesn't always happen.
I have had a random one where I actually lost my period after a show. It was really weird. I had it the show week, and then I lost it for 3 months post-show when I was reverse dieting. Yep. So sometimes that happens too. So, I mean, our bodies are funky, so don't necessarily panic. Obviously, you want to get your period back, and that's why we like to do our testing, but it is something that is relatively common. I'm not going to say it's normal, because ideally you want to have your period throughout, but at the same time, it does happen. Talk to your coach about it, figure out how to get it back. It's something that's usually quite fixable. It just takes time. And
it's usually dictated by the body fat percentage. And there's no magic cure as a coach that we can suddenly just, there you go, everything's normal. That's why it's not uncommon for us to sort of have that go from, to lose it post-prep. It does happen because, again, you're recovering. That's the point of reverse. Yep. It's going into recovery. So some shit will go sideways, and that's okay. But we tend to want to have your periods normalize within 60 to 90 days, so within 2 to 3 cycles post-prep. If it's not, then talk to your coach, but also more importantly, talk to your GP, because no disrespect, most of us coaches are not actual medical doctors. So
most also male.
Yeah, and we can sit there and go, man, I don't know.
Wife.
Although my wife does tell me that I frequently have a menstrual cycle, but I think that's for different purposes. So, that's sort of how I would do it in when you're going from comp season into growth season, as I said. And everybody's different. A lot of that will be driven by, more so with an enhanced athletes where I will get blood work done early and then we'll get it done afterwards. That's more driven by you than from the coaches. I strongly recommend it. It's just there's obviously an added expense, but again, it's looking at those things. You don't need to have all that hard measurable science. If your strength is going up in the gym, if your mood's better, you're getting more sleep, your hunger levels are normal, you're doing a good job. So give yourself a pat on the back.
Something I do want to touch on while we're talking about different the two types of reverse is in New Zealand we actually don't have what most countries have, which is 2 seasons. So we generally just have all of our shows towards the end of the year. Some countries, like for example Australia, they have like a season A. I think they even have a season B and a season C. So you can literally compete all throughout the year. And if you are only competing in New Zealand, you would really only compete kind of towards the end of the year. There's about a period of 2 months where usually all the shows are. It is a struggle for me as a bikini maker. But as an athlete, it can be quite good because it gives you a longer time for your off season. If you are competing in like a season A, you have a lot less time between your shows. So in that case, you're almost doing kind of an in between. So it's not quite that 2 shows reverse, but it's also not quite that full off season reverse. It's kind of like a somewhere in the middle.
It's kind of interesting the way Australia is doing it, and they put up their calendar recently. They've got A, B, and C seasons. A and C are your standard NPC worldwide regionals. B season is the NPC natural season. So there is a bigger gap between essentially season 1 and season 2. So the B1 is so they have their state championships and regional champs, and then the nationals with the pro qualifier. So there is a bigger gap. But in New Zealand, we don't have the athletes. We're a small country. There's probably, I would estimate, across all federations, probably no more than 1,500 competitive bodybuilders in the country. So, there's just, it would make financial sense to do a season A and a season B. I think you'd just be diluting one or the other.
But yeah, back to
which
the
is
point.
downside.
We're just saying we don't have it. So instead of having like a 6 months off season, you generally have the full year.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yeah, that halves the time. So if you're doing a 6 month off season, you only really have, because if your prep is say 3 months or even 2 months, that only gives you 3 months to reverse and then build. So it does shorten that period a lot.
And the good thing about these seasons in countries like New Zealand, where they're a bit smaller and a bit more truncated at the end of the year, is you generally should be back to maintenance by Christmas time.
Yeah, Christmas.
Just fun.
Which actually is a good point that we should talk about. Events. Guys, on Christmas, please don't bring your Tupperware unless you're actually doing a show in like January, which you're probably not.
Or weddings, or birthday.
Yeah, special events, tell your coach in advance and you can plan for it. Like, it's not rocket science generally. Sometimes you might even have the menu. I have had it before where I've had a important birthday that I've sent my coach the menu. I mean, like, hey, is there anything on here that we can plan for so I can eat with all my friends and family? So yeah, don't bring your Tupperware to really special events. Like if it's like just like going out for dinner or something that's like every couple of weeks, slightly different. But if it's like a wedding, it's like a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
Don't bring your Tupperware. Even Christmas, like that's a really important time to spend with family. I know some cultures don't really celebrate it, but all cultures have some kind of day where you have a family and friends day. Yeah. Please celebrate that. Eat with your family because it is very important culturally. Food is a big cultural thing. It's sharing food is very important.
And as you said, I mean, unless it was, I mean, even he was dumb enough to do a comp on, I don't know, the 2nd of January, then in your peak week, if you've got like a wedding that's in the peak week, then then you take your Tupperware. But if if it's falling into the growth season or into the reverse part of the season, these are important milestones, and there are a hell of a lot more important things than worrying about if you accidentally ate 1,000 calories extra and had 3 glasses of white wine and then a couple of shots and then we're dancing on the table. It's like these things don't, in the scale of thing, is not really important. Hey, it's a good wedding when you're dancing on the table. I'm just saying, if they're not dancing on table at your wedding, Rachel, I'm going home. That's it. All
right. I will make a key point that we need some fire music and tables that are approved for dancing.
Yeah. They might need to be sufficiently hefty because most of the people are quite healthy and they would break shit.
Yeah, please eat the food.
Yeah, eat the food. Eat the food.
Don't be that person.
Yeah, don't be that person. So the other thing about post-show is, look, and this is one of the reasons that reverse is important, is there's a lot of psychology that goes into post-show and the food. So there's common head stuff, if you like, after a show is loss of identity. Prep gives people a routine, a purpose, and a label. Everybody's like, oh, are you competing? When it ends, many people, they just feel lost. They're no longer that person. They're no longer getting shredded or ticking all the perfect macros every day. The question becomes who and what you are after prep. So that loss of identity is understandable. There's that fear of weight gain that we talked about. Even when athletes know the weight gain is needed, it still feels like a failure because they see the scale start to climb. That can trigger panic, body checking, or trying to compensate with doing too much more cardio, not eating the food that they're supposed to. And that fear is normal, but that's why the structure of reverse can be a critical part of it.
I do want to say the first period post-show is actually I think is the best time to just go absolutely hard in your training. Obviously give yourself a week to get used to training hard again, but because you're still lean and you're filling out your body. So you're psychologically thinking your muscles are getting bigger by the week and you feel like an absolute boss. So that to me is the best way to get past some of that body image stuff is to go really hard in your training, get the pump and just like pump your muscles full of carbohydrates. And you think that you're like in your head, obviously you can't grow muscle that fast, but in your head you're like, oh my God, look, my delts have grown in 3 weeks. And it's awesome.
The pump is real.
And it feels good. Training feels good again. So that's the best time to, I think for the loss of identity, just really throw yourself into your workouts. I know your diet isn't as much of a thing. Maybe you're not doing as much cardio, but throw yourself into your workouts because it's going to make you feel really, really good.
Yeah, it will. One of the other things, I guess, psychologically speaking, there's often guilt and shame after a binge because quite often once the show is over, those hunger and cravings spike. Somebody's bought a shitload of baking backstage and everybody's just like, yeah. Not aiming that at anybody, Amy.
Totally.
So Natalia, yeah, Talia. I never got one of those cookies either, Talia. I'm lodging a formal complaint that under knowledge I will not be returning the chicken or helping in his return from his kidnapping, even though we know where he is. So if you overeat, and you often feel like you've ruined everything, right? You go out there, you just absolutely gorge yourself, and that shame can push you to restrict and go into that classic restrict and binge cycle because of that one thing. It happens. And if it happens, that's life. Just note it down. Don't hide it. It's just a fact of life. And it's like, okay, well, the consequence is it's going to take a little bit longer, but that's okay. So yeah, there is no guilt and shame because it happens. It's just, it happens.
It comes back to, I think, not taking everything like it's so personal, because it's just science at the end of the day. You eat a whole bunch of extra calories. Yeah, you're going to gain a little bit extra weight. Nobody cares. It's just, that's a fact of life. You diet, you go lower on calories, you are going to lose weight. Again, it's a fact, it's science. Nobody really cares. So just, if you have had a binge, just tell your coach. If your coach is shaming you, though, that's not a good thing. Potentially look into a different coach, because that's going to make things worse. But in theory, what your coach should do at that point, if you say, oh shit, I've had a binge, they should be like, okay, cool. What happened? What did you eat? Let's make a plan to move forward. It's happened. You can't undo it. Move forward.
It's less about what you ate; it's more about why you ate. And that's what.
And if you're going into a show, potentially it might be like, yeah, how many calories did you eat? Yeah,
it's like, okay, you're on. I'm now strapping you to the stair climber. The other thing is, one of the other things that people often psychologically try and do post show is try to stage lean for social media. So a lot of athletes feel that pressure to keep that shredded look for photos, and this can prevent them from leaning into proper recovery, and even when staying that lean is not realistic or healthy, they know this, but it's like sometimes there's pressure on. Frequently you will see, I know time and time again, I've seen where like increasing the carbohydrates and the sodium in particular immediately post show will actually make you look better because you're holding a pump longer, you've got all that sort of stuff going on. But yeah, if you're going to be doing social media content based around your stage lean look, then you have to think about what you're actually doing. Your reverse will not start. If you're going to do photo shoots, do them within a confined period of time, immediately post-show, so that once you can maintain that condition in, say, that week, so that get them out of the way, so that you can immediately go into recovery. And again, this comes back to looking at reverse not as increasing calories. Look at it as a recovery time. So you've got 3 seasons. You've got growth, you've got prep, you've got recovery. You need to do all 3. So don't extend your prep just for some social media content.
100%. And also remember, when you're looking at social media, I mean, everyone's got different genetics, and I do see a lot of Photoshop. Even competitors, I've seen them Photoshop their stage photos. But in the off season, do not expect to keep your abs in the off season. It's actually very, very difficult for a female to have abs and be in a healthy body fat range. Very, very few females can do it, and that's usually a genetic thing. It is the 2%. So enjoy being thick, getting the glutes up, getting the hamstrings up. Enjoy that. Enjoy getting some curves back. But yeah, don't expect necessarily the abs to stick around, because I know that's a big thing for people is, yeah, I got abs, this is great, but is it worth it?
And from a coach's perspective, no, it's not. Not if you want to be better next year. So the thing about reverse is, look, it's structure, and the structure can help. So a reverse plan, or I prefer the term structured recovery plan, can give you guidance and help reduce panic, right? It also helps you feel safe during a very strange transition period when you're going from the shredded to the, as I will quote Rachel there, from shredded to thick. I don't know.
With a C.
With a C, yeah. The problem is when that structure turns into perfectionism. So if an athlete thinks that they must hit every gram perfectly or they failed, the plan becomes harmful instead of helpful. So as you're not recovering, you're feeding into that sort of dangerous ground. So there's some red flags you should be looking for when you recover through the recovery stage. That's hiding food or sneaking small snacks because you feel a bit shameful, I guess. I don't have the 6-pack. You're having those secret binges, especially if they become more frequent. I mean, that binge post show, it happens, and it's kind of assumed you're going to do it anyway. Some people will say, I've never had a post show binge. I straight back on the plane. Good for you. You are the genetic freak and you are the outlier. But for most normal people, it's like, I have not had a slice of pizza in 6 months. God damn it, I'm having one now.
That is a good point. The people who can just stick 100% to their plan, all year around, that's not actually normal. I mean, it's awesome for them, and they are probably going to do really, really well. And yeah, we all are jealous of that person because go them. I'm not saying, yeah, not just to say it's the best. Do that if you can, but most people cannot. It's actually normal to not be able to follow your plan 110% all the time.
Yeah.
That it's normal.
Yeah. That's 100% all. The other red flag to watch, and this does happen a lot, even with people you don't expect it from, is avoiding your check-ins because you're kind of a little bit nervous or embarrassed or scared to sort of admit to the weight gain. Look, as a coach, I expect it. I'm not expecting you to be as shredded in 2 weeks' time that you were on show day. So yeah, don't try and ghost your coach for a couple of weeks and just pretend it's not happening because we know. Another red flag is refusing to increase your calories, even if you are exhausted. And you're losing strength, refusing to reduce your cardio. Those are clear signs that the hiding the food, the binging, the avoiding check-ins, refusing to increase calories. Those are clear signs that you're actually in distress. It's got nothing to do with discipline. It's just, you're just not in a good place. So the thing is, there are strategies you can use to actually help, right? Normalize the weight gain. It's not a fall from grace. You didn't screw up. It's natural that you...
It's funny because, yeah, society is so, like, anti-weight gain. Because, I mean, and bodybuilding is a completely different universe to the lifestyle. It's completely different. Usually, the only time in lifestyle that people are wanting to gain weight is if they've actually had eating problems in the past.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding is very different. We are trying to actively gain as much muscle as possible, which requires weight. So it is a completely different universe to what we are societally told our entire lives. So please remember that. It goes against everything we've been taught.
And the other thing is, like, that stage lean, it's a temporary costume. It's like Halloween for one day. It's you get to dress up in this completely fantasy land of a look. It's not a lifestyle. You can't sustain it.
Actually, something I like to do is follow some competitors who you really like how they look in the off season. Because then not only are you looking at them, because I mean, everyone kind of does it, and you're like, you've got your couple of competitors, you're like, I'm like, they're my inspiration. I am working to get glutes like hers or something. Which, I mean, yeah, we've talked about comparison. There's good ways and bad ways to it. But everyone has that person that you're like, I'm working towards this. Find something like that for the off season as well. Because then you can actually see how it looks good to be carrying body fat as well, rather than a lot of people kind of have this very negative connotation with weight gain. And it's like, oh, I'm going to look fat, blah, blah, blah. It can look really, really good. Like, there's a lot of competitors that you're like, wow, they look amazing in the off season. So that's another really good way to do it, to kind of get more positive connotations around that weight gain.
Yep. 100% agree with that. The other thing is, like, the easiest way to look at it is, like, you need more support, out in this recovery phase. You are recovering. The reality is things like, you need someone outside of bodybuilding to talk to. Therapy is great. Counseling's great. Or just speaking to somebody who's just neutral to the whole subject. That can really help you as you go through this recovery phase. Because, as I said, often you are struggling with that change in body image. I think the other strategy that you can follow is keep communication open between yourself and your coach, and also with your teammates. So have regular, honest check-ins. They really do matter. You need to know that you can tell your coach anything without being judged. Coaches need to remind their athletes that a small amount of food blowout is not a moral or an ethical failure. It's called life. So
I just have one more thing as well on the body image. The other thing that makes it so much harder for people who are early on in their competing journeys is the less muscle you have, the harder it is to look good with more body fat. If you have more muscle, the more muscle you have, the better you're going to look in the off season. So that's also something to remember. The more you work to grow, each time the better you're going to look in the off season as well, and the easier it becomes to go into that off season. So that's another thing that actually does make it even more challenging for newer athletes.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, as I said, you've got 3 seasons. You've got growth, you've got prep, and you've got recovery. And the better you can recover, the better
my
you
brain
can
is
grow.
just pinging right now. But yeah,
Here we go.
I have to say it though, the first 4 to 6 weeks, I do think are generally the absolute worst. Because Usually for most people, that's when you're really inflamed. You've got a lot of water retention. And even if you've only gained like 2 kgs, sometimes it can look like it was like 7 to 8. So generally, especially for newer competitors, that's the absolute worst time because you look, you can get like this like almost skinny fat look where you almost don't look like you've got muscle because you're holding so much water that it really covers and hides your muscle. And it does also make you look a lot softer than you are. So just a warning out there, a lot of the time, it does kind of come back down to normal. It just takes a little bit of time. That first few weeks is the worst by far in terms of body image, with also the fact that you can see that you're holding water. So it looks, it doesn't look like you're lean anymore pretty instantaneously.
But again, that's part of the
that's part of how it
process.
goes. It's just a warning. It's just a warning.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will think that they will still look really, really good for at least the first 4 weeks. But some people, especially if you're more sensitive to it, it can get really, really difficult those first couple of weeks.
Yep, it can. And again, it's why we call it the recovery phase. This is what your body's doing. It's a lot of the inflammation is caused by your body doing what it needs to do in order to take care of you, because you won't freaking help it.
You injure yourself, you swell up. That's basically what we're doing.
You have a wicked leg session and you break down a whole bunch of muscle fiber, your body will swell up because it's protecting itself, because
you literally have to tear your muscle fibers. That's how you grow. You have to tear your muscle fibers. You have to rip them.
Yep. It should be called body destruction, not bodybuilding. That would be more accurate.
Basically. But
all right,
speaking of called, the reverse diet, I have heard a lot of coaches actually call it the recovery diet.
Yep.
Just because you keep kind of referring to that.
Yep. Good. I didn't coin that phrase. I'm pretty sure I picked it up from probably Chris Aceto, actually. I think it was the first person I heard use it, recovery, which is... I would not argue with anything Chris Aceto says. He's very smart. Right, what do we got? We've got some... I'm quite smart. So I got told that yesterday. I think you said it, actually. I was like, what do you want? Right, some myths and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Myth number 1. Reverse dieting will fix your metabolism while I stay shredded. Bullshit. Your metabolism does not recover without body fat returning. Hopefully we've stressed that enough today. You cannot be shredded and hormonally healthy at the same time. Generally, there are outliers to that. There is that, the athletes that are like, freaking vascular and 6-packs and all that sort of stuff year round. We're not talking about them. Staying stage lean is a temporary state, not a marker of metabolic magic. I like to say your metabolism is it's not like a phone battery. You cannot charge it up while keeping it on 1%.
Anyone who sells you metabolism fixes is probably trying to sell you something.
Yep. The metabolism fixes get fat, sort of within reason.
Fat-ish.
Yeah, ish. So if you're staying shredded with zero energy, your metabolism's not fixed. You're just suffering quietly, and that's no fun. All right, what else? Okay. Another myth is, if I regain any weight quickly, I have failed. Weight gain after a show is normal, and it's necessary.
Especially if you've done a water cut.
Yeah, which, as we know, that I am very much against water cutting or water loading for any form.
But some people do it. So if you have, you are going to gain back more weight instantly because you need water in your body.
Yeah, it's your body literally going, what the hell to do that for? Again, weight gain after a show is normal, it's necessary. Fast gain does not mean lack of discipline. It means your body is doing what it's supposed to do after an extreme diet. The failure is believing you should stay stage ready all year round. Stage, as we said, it's an event, it's an occasion, it's a destination. It's not a permanent thing being stage lean, And again, that's where the markers come, like watching what we've talked about in previously, the key signs that that you are recovering properly. Another one is a good reverse diet means never feeling out of control. Even the most experienced pros feel out of control sometimes post-show. Hunger hormones spike, appetite rebounds, thinking about food becomes normal. Feeling out of control does not mean you failed. It just means you're human. So
you're never going to feel completely in control of everything. I know bodybuilding attracts a lot of control freaks, but especially in the reverse, you just got to allow a little bit of chaos.
Yep, a little bit of chaos. As I said, partners in chaos. That's us. Chaos and sparkles. That's what we should call this podcast. The other myth is everyone should reverse diet the same way. No, everybody is different. Some people, they do better with structure. Some need faster increases for mental health, hormonal health, or performance. Some need more flexibility. Others just need really clear rules. No one size fits all. Basically, the way I look at it is if I coached every athlete the same way, I'm not coaching them. I'm just selling them a template. Everybody's different, and I have to treat everybody different. Rachel's agreeing with me.
Great. Because yeah, definitely you wouldn't treat everyone the way you treat me because I am a spoiled brat.
You are unique. You're a unicorn.
Yeah, no, because I mean, yeah, I'm quite different to everyone else, and it's actually very impressive if I feel hungry and it's like, yay!
I'm just looking forward to January when you're going on your annual bulking season.
Yeah, the annual bulking trip where I get force fed for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm okay. I am okay with this. This is perfectly part of the plan. All right. So when does reverse dieting make sense, and when is it actually slowing down your recovery? Look, it makes sense when shows are close together and you need to manage conditioning. It makes sense when you're feeling flat, emotional, losing strength, or struggling. So sometimes you just actually have to reverse out of prep. Some athletes need to get back to maintenance fast so they can stop post-show freefall. Again, everybody's different. So you've got to listen to yourself. You've got to watch for those red flags and stuff we've talked about before. But again, not one size fits all. And again, this is a recovery phase. You have to get back to a healthy level of body fat. You want to get back to enjoying your training. You want to get back to having more energy, better sleep, better hormone, better menstrual cycles, all of that sort of stuff. This is the time to set yourself up to have a really good growth season.
And often people on social media, they feel like they need to be lean to stay relevant, or to, I guess, look good for the gram. You don't. And then you see a lot of people who are taking their Instagram pic. Well, I'm going to be honest, I've been sharing my pics post-show.
You have?
And you do see a lot of competitors doing that and saying, kind of, this is how much weight I've gained. For me, I do it because it's like, I'm saying I'm being flexible and I am not blowing out completely because I'm trying to help people who are very, very scared to eat anything that's off their plan. I'm trying to kind of show that you can be a little bit flexible and you can also reverse and had a little bit of flexibility without going absolutely overboard. But if you find that's getting into your head, try not to look at it. Nobody's entitled to your check-in photos. You don't have to post anything. If you are feeling a little bit soft, a little bit fluffy, you're like, yeah, if you want to post it and say like, yeah, this is how I'm feeling, that is fine, because like it's good to share how you feel. Some people find it helps. But if you are struggling, nobody's entitled to that. You don't need to post anything. You don't need to look at anyone's post on Instagrams. You can ignore it. Being lean has no relevance to how well you're going to look on social media. It's literally just a highlight reel. Yeah. You can post what you want to post.
Yep. Post what it's your story. It's your journey. Right. Well, we should probably look at wrapping this up. Because we've waffled on long enough about recovery. Although I think for 21 pages of notes, I think we've done pretty well. But some key things that I want to get across and I want everybody to take away from this is, first off, reverse dieting is a tool, not a religion. It can help with structure and stability, but it's not a magic formula, and it's not required for everyone. Secondly, most real recovery depends on regaining some body fat and lifting your intake. Not by a little 50 calories per week or adjustments. It's your body will not repair itself if you try and stay shredded. So food and body fat are part of that process. And finally, for myself, the best post-show strategy is the one that actually supports your health and your career. A good approach should support your mental health. It should restore hormones and energy, and it should set you up for a strong growth season and future preps. It's this season, the recovery season, that determines how well your growth season will go. Rachel, any pearls of wisdom you'd like to add before we close up today?
I think the biggest thing is just to have a good reflection on yourself and think, what type of person are you for the reverse? Do you need to be quite strict on your structure, or do you need to have a little bit of flexibility? Maybe you're in between, but have a good reflection on how much flexibility is right for you. Don't use it as an excuse. Be very honest with yourself. What do you actually need? What do you not need? I think that's the biggest thing, is just to be honest with yourself on how much flexibility you actually need and how much you want. Need and want are two very different things.
This is true. So look, if your goal is a long competitive career, your reverse or your recovery phase matters just as much as your prep. You're not less of an athlete because you're no longer stage lean. You are just in a different season. And as Rachel said, nobody really posts about enough. So talk about it, share it. Got questions, reach out and ask either Rachel and I. You can reach us on via Instagram's the easiest way at macro_lounge _podcast. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I know it was a little bit longer than normal, but it was one that we did get asked a lot of questions about. We've probably completely overshared in some information, but hopefully you got some pearls of wisdom out of it. And if you found it helpful, follow us on Spotify or subscribe on YouTube and leave us a rating or review. It genuinely actually helps new athletes find the show. And as I said, follow us on Instagram. Yeah, 5 stars, we need 5 stars. But on behalf of Rachel and myself, thank you very much. We will see you all next Saturday, where I believe we will be having another fabulous guest. We will leave that one as a surprise.
And happy reversing, everyone.
Happy reversing. And we'll see you on Saturday.
Enjoy.